2023 was a fantastic year for gaming. We had an abundance of great releases this year with a nice mix of AAA and indie games, raising the bar for future releases. I played a lot of games this year, and narrowing the list down to just 10 of them was a really difficult task. So before we get to the top 10 games of the year, let's go over some honorable mentions. I will not be including remasters, remakes and ports. The remakes of Resident Evil 4 and Dead Space would be very high on the list, if they weren't released in 2005 and 2008 respectively. Hogwarts Legacy had the very difficult task of transforming a super successful franchise into the form of a video game, and the work done by the devs was pretty good. Its gameplay is very enjoyable, and its open world was one of the year's best. With a slightly better plot, it would easily have been much higher on the list. On Guard is a game that does one thing, and it does it well. In the game, you play as a swordswoman trying to stop the evil plans of the local count. On Guard's greatest success lies in the fact that instead of using your sword, you must use the environment around you to overcome your enemies. On Guard does an excellent job of making you feel like you outsmarted your enemies, as opposed to having you mindlessly spam buttons. Still, I feel like it needed a bit more depth. Dredge is perhaps the most unique game of the year, as it is a horror fishing game, and even though at its core, it's a fishing game, it manages to remain interesting through its fantastic atmosphere and the player's constant desire to upgrade their ship. However, I found that the horror elements of the game quickly became part of the daily fishing routine and did not have the desired effect. When you're attacked by another worldly fish and you're more concerned about the damage to the boat than the attack itself, something isn't right with the game's design. Tape to Tape follows a recent trend where it takes any video game genre and it makes it roguelike. Tape to Tape is a roguelike hockey game that came out in early access this year. The gameplay on offer here is excellent, and the different powers of the teams you face keep the experience consistently fresh. I felt like the roguelike elements prevented it from being the best game it could be. I believe that the option to play in a league with all available teams would have made the experience even better. I don't think I have any major complaints about Jedi Survivor, which prevented me from including it on this list. It's just a victim of too many great games releasing this year. The game had fantastic combat and a strong plot, but was left out of the top 10 because of the following games. If we were talking purely about gameplay, Ocho would probably be at the top of the list. Being a combination of Hotline Miami and Max Payne, Ocho offered one of the best gameplay loops of the year. In the game, you're trapped in a nightmarish mansion where you must defeat hordes of enemies in order to make your escape. The combat, combined with the game's music, is simply delightful, and despite the high level of difficulty, I wanted to keep playing simply because of its fantastic gameplay. I discovered Ocho from Racevic's video on it, and it turned out to be one of the year's hidden gems. Mario Wonder, while not the complete rejuvenation of the series that was expected, had some of the most creative levels in the franchise's history and is undoubtedly still one of the best platformers of the year. The consistent quality of these games over the years remains impressive, and Mario Wonder is no exception. Mario Wonder never ceased to amaze me with some truly unexpected levels that were constantly accompanied by its incredible gameplay. After a series of very successful releases, Armored Core 6 appears to be the game From Software wanted to make. Armored Core may not have the same marketability as something like Elden Ring, but it's still an extremely high quality game. I had never played another game in the genre before, but I was quickly impressed by its gameplay. The duels between two colossal mechs with laser swords are on one hand an idea a 5-year-old could have, and on the other hand the best idea anyone had this year. A truly delightful game. Spider-Man 2 had the best traversal system in the history of gaming. This, combined with excellent combat and a very interesting plot, made it one of the best games of the year. Insomniac has found the right formula for making a Spider-Man game, and it's on full display here. It fully understands the characters it brings to the world of video games, and the result is a game that is better than almost anything else on the market right now. Tears of the Kingdom made me get the recent change in direction of the franchise. Unlike a large percentage of the community, I didn't love Breath of the Wild when it was first released, and that may be for the fact that I tried to play it like any other open world game. Several years later, Tears of the Kingdom helped me understand why these games have become so well liked by everyone. I spent dozens of hours exploring the world of Hyrule, and many of those hours were spent creating strange vehicles. The creativity that the game allows the player in tackling challenges is unparalleled, and I don't think I've ever seen another open world so full of things to discover. Hi-Fi Rush is a game that took me by surprise. Created by Tango Gameworks, who also made the incredibly mediocre Ghostwire Tokyo last year, Hi-Fi Rush was released the same day it was announced, with zero marketing. The result is a fantastic hack and slash game where any move you make must be made according to the beat of the song playing at the time. The game's combat is simply delightful, and the positive energy the whole title gives off is infectious. Probably the most enjoyable game of the year. Pizza Tower is a game that, from my understanding, started off as a small project between a group of friends and has grown into one of the best platformers I've ever played. This game is inspired by the old Wario Land games, where after you finish a level, you have to go back to its beginning, this time under time pressure. This makes the player move at a frenetic pace that is maintained until the end of the game. Pizza Tower combines its gameplay, music, and fantastic level design to create a product that is unexpectedly excellent. Killer Frequency may be the most obscure game on the list, but of all the games I've played this year, this was the game that I kept thinking about. In Killer Frequency, you're a radio host where after a series of events, you take on the role of guiding local residents to avoid the attacks of a serial killer. What follows is 5 exceptionally interesting hours where Killer Frequency manages to be both terrifying and hilarious at the same time. I haven't seen any other title that combines humor and horror as well as Killer Frequency, and it's an experience that has become ingrained to my memory. Before we get to the last 2 games, I just want to mention that it was very difficult for me to select my game of the year. Both games we're going to talk about were a cut above the year's other releases and raised the bar for games in the future. For a long time, picking 2 winners was on the table, but in the end, there will only be 1 winner. What Baldur's Gate 3 did is a real achievement for the gaming industry. The game offers an abundance of content, with every mission the player undertakes offering almost an equal quality of gameplay and story. The options the player has in Baldur's Gate 3 that actually affect the world around them, either in a small or large scale, are nearly countless, and all the characters the player will meet on their journey manage to be unique and interesting. Just the fact that there is a game like Baldur's Gate 3 on the market is truly incredible, and for the majority of 2023, I thought it would be the game of the year. But in the last month of the year, right before I started making the list, another game caught my attention.
And the award goes to Alan White!
Very few games have managed to grab my attention like Alan Wake 2. This game was simultaneously a game I wanted to stop playing because of how scary it was, but I had to keep playing because of how interesting the story was. The plot is engaging and keeps you constantly excited to see what happens next. Having played many of Remedy's older games, this game feels like the result of decades of work and effort. From Max Payne to Alan Wake to Quantum Break to Control and finally Alan Wake 2, Remedy's entire game catalog suddenly seems like a preparation for this game. The creativity of the game is truly something else, with Alan Wake 2 using FMV scenes, gameplay mechanics, and our own expectations from a modern video game to create a masterpiece. Every single person that worked on this game deserves many congratulations, and especially its director Sam Lake, who, although what he does doesn't always work, he constantly strives to bring something different to the video game industry. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I'll be uploading more videos to the channel very shortly. See you in the next one.